going through the womb spiral and then becoming a womb spiral practitioner and embodying this work more fully, um, I was so disconnected from my body and what pleasure felt like, um, sexually and non-sexually. It's like I'd never been taught that. And so it was very foreign to me to actually really love and be connected with my body, as well as to bring pleasure into all of the areas of life and what that does to the quality of life. And like challenging and easeful experiences alike. Like it literally impacts everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, day and night, like literally when I hear the women that I'm talking to are like, I don't know if I can do that. It's like, I totally understand because I was right there with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it obviously so many times with women coming through womb spiral, and even with myself of starting this work too, like however many years ago, I can't even remember now, but I was similar situation, like very, very disconnected from my body. And
Mhm.
to be honest, I was sharing with someone the other day, I didn't know that it was normal to feel pleasure in your body. Like I actually had no idea that that was even a thing. So that just
Wow.
shows you how disconnected that I was. Like when my pleasure started to open, I was like, what is this? Like, have other people been living with this and never even told me that this was possible? Like, how rude.
Yeah.
Why were they not telling me? I missed out on all these years because I literally thought the only sense of pleasure that I could have was like with a partner during lovemaking, and which even back then I wouldn't have called it lovemaking really, but and it even then wasn't really this great deal of pleasure. I just didn't even really
Yeah.
understand what it could be. And through doing work with the womb and with my body, just what has opened up now, I'm like, you mean I can feel pleasure from the breeze on my skin or the
Mhm.
sun hitting my skin or my hair? Just then as my hair touched my body, I was like, oh, like that feels so, oh, so good. Um, and I actually think that more women than we will ever know are in that place of complete disconnection
Mm. Yes.
and don't know, like just nobody's ever told them there is something else that's available to you for yourself. This is the
Yeah.
other piece I think is like, it's for you. If you share it with someone else, amazing, that's up to you. But like activating this pleasure is
Yeah.
talking
I
about it.
remember the first time I heard you say, a woman who is fully in her pleasure is fully in her power.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that that made so much sense to me why female pleasure isn't always prioritized, because we kind of become very sovereign in that space. um, and that doesn't always fit the current paradigm. So it's like we really, um, yeah, when we're connected to our own bodies, we don't
Mm.
outsource so much. And it's a really beautiful, beautiful place to be, but it's very different from the way most of us have lived most of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's been intentionally shut down in us for so many years because a woman who is fully in her pleasure and is fully in her power can be perceived as being dangerous because she can make changes in the world. She can shift what's happening around her just by being in that in herself. And it can be seen as, we see it in different cultures. It's definitely perceived as dangerous, and it's definitely very shut down in a lot of different areas and a lot of different cultures around the world. And I feel like what we get to do now is to start to, we're seeing it more and more. Like I remember when I first started this work, it was really quite taboo. It was like you would never talk about pleasure or sex or sexuality. It was like almost like behind closed doors type of thing. And it's now becoming
Yeah.
more okay to actually talk about it, which I'm so excited about, and to be able to talk about it in a reasonably open and safe way. And I feel like what that's starting to do is to ripple out into the collective, and people are now starting to get it of like, oh, I you mean I can have that too? Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to mention this fear because I actually recognized as I started doing this work that I was scared of what I would do fully in my power as well. So not only was it like maybe a perception from the outside, but internally it was like, oh my goodness, am I responsible enough to harness that much power? Like, what
Mm.
can I handle all of that? And it's interesting because what helped switch the awareness for me is that the way that I had previously related to power was very masculine
Yeah.
power and a little more penetrative, and recognizing that actually the essence of feminine power is very different in the way that it moves and the way that it creates change. And so like understanding that and starting to lean more fully into that helped resolve a lot of that, the initial fear that came
Mm.
up that I had essentially internalized from, conditioning and the world around me, essentially.
Mm. What do you feel started to shift that for you? Like if there was fear in the start of like what would that mean for you to fully be in your pleasure and therefore to fully be in your power, but kind of seeing that as more masculine. Can you remember like what started to switch it for you?
Oh, for me, it was actually feeling it in my body. So my mind was like, that's what power looks like. And it's really damaging. Do you see what power is doing in the world? Right. And then
Mm.
it was like, when I started to feel it in my own body, it was like, but it doesn't look like that. I'm not aggressing. I'm not, pushing. I'm not trying to take. I'm actually holding like more love than I've ever held in my body before, so it was like to feel the contrast between what my mind perceived it was and what it actually felt like in my body. I couldn't, it's like they didn't match up. So my mind had to go, wait a second, okay, these aren't the same thing. What's going on here, So yeah,
Mm.
that, obviously led to further exploration, but it feels
Mm.
different. It feels different.
Yeah. What are you witnessing at the moment? Like, because now you also hold women through womb spiral and through connecting more deeply to their own bodies in all areas, like literally their physical body, but also just being able to tap more into their pleasure, their sex, their sexuality, everything. What are you
Yeah.
noticing when you're now on this side, kind of witnessing people's transformation? What are you noticing changing in their lives as they're connecting more to themselves?
Um, I mean, my favorite is women understanding what their bodies are capable of. Like like I'd shared, I didn't know my body could do that. I didn't know that my body, functioned this way. And this recognition that they have unconsciously and conditioned, like because of conditioning, shamed themselves for things that they desire. So women starting to actually own their desires, like I actually do want to have more pleasure. I actually do want to be more orgasmic. I do want to feel alive in my body. Whereas before, I think they just didn't even realize that it was missing. It was like, this is just what we do. We chug along, we do what we're supposed to do. And something changes, and it's like, oh, wait a second, I have this right here in front of me, and I'm not utilizing it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that and it is powerful. It's like, oh, I'm in control of this. The other piece is like women's yeses and nos. And
Mm.
when women really start to recognize, oh, I can say no. Like I'm not interested in whether it's sexual or non-sexual, whether it's work or partnership or whatever, that like women start to recognize that they say yes a lot
Mm.
without even
Mhm.
realizing that there's an alternative response. So that's one of my favorite things too, is that inevitably at some point on the journey, women have this like aha moment, like I said no, and I did like I didn't know that I could do that. And not feel
Mhm.
guilty or not, all of those things. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely been one of my things as well to witness is like that moment, excuse me, sorry. That moment for women when they do realize that they get to say no. Like there's something that really shifts massively in a woman's psyche when she first starts to be, you mean I can say no to like just things that are happening in life beyond anything physical. Like just I can say, no, I'm not doing that for you. And then like just yeah, and there is like I've had similar experiences of women be like, I said no to something. Like, yeah, in the saying no to that thing that you're doing for everybody else, you're starting to say yes to yourself, right? And it's like all the places that we run around and I don't know how, I mean, I don't know how we picked it up, but it's just wild that we've picked up this thing that we think that we have to say yes to everything and that we have to do everything. If someone says, can you do this for me? We're like, yeah, sure. Oh, I can do that for you. When really all of our whole body is going, no, I don't want to do it. But that light bulb moment when we realize, like, oh, you mean I get to say no to that? Suddenly, so many more opportunities open up and so much more time. I remember
Yes.
that was one of the things for me. I was like, I don't have time for all these things. And I'd be rushing around my calendar, be so full. And then now it's like, oh, I can have spaciousness just to be in some pleasure. And I'm still getting as much done.
Right. Exactly.
But I've learned to say no to things that don't align and don't fit. And I feel like as we say no and we say yes to ourselves, I literally feel like that is one of the big keys to finding the more connection to our own
Yes.
body.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is of course
Absolutely.
a connection to more pleasure. So
Yeah. Yeah, because we aren't outsourcing anymore. It's like I think we're continuously looking for somebody else to affirm or to validate or to, even just like make us feel needed and wanted and valuable in some way. And that takes us away from ourselves and what's
mm,
right here. And so when we're relying on anything outside of us, that's going to change. It's like we can't control any of that. And so when we can come back to here, we feel safe, we feel stable, and we just know
mm,
that we are built to handle anything that comes up in the world around us.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. As you've tuned more into your pleasure, which obviously, you've also tuned more into your no's and your yeses and more into your pleasure. What are
Mhm.
some of the things that you're noticing have changed in your life?
I mean, I feel like we directly impact the quantum field around us. So if we are in pleasure and if we are feeling full of life, the world reflects that to us. And I mean, one of my favorite like integration exercises is to activate pleasure in our bodies and do something normal, like go to the grocery store and pick out your veggies, but allow pleasure to be running in your body.
Uh-huh.
And to feel what what the world around you feels like and looks like, like what people look like from that vibration and what the experience feels like. Um, we get to color our world through that lens of like just yummy, juicy pleasure, and everything gets to feel good. I mean, even if it's like signing papers at the bank or something, like we can literally infuse it with pleasure and it gets to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Like
so
life is so like I feel sometimes when I tune in, like I do similar things, is I'll just go and do your normal daily activities and activate that pleasure within my body. And I do a really fun, I might even share it with everyone on here. Like I do a really fun pelvic bowl piece as well that really brings this juicy energy up and I'll run it through my body. And kind of feel like I have this fun little secret. And like, I'm
yeah.
standing in a queue at the whatever. I don't know. Like, my favorite place to have done it is like standing in the queue when you're coming off the plane. Those old things that we used
Oh,
to be
yeah.
allowed to fly on. Yeah, those things. Standing in the queue to get through, and I would just stand there and be like working this energy and playing with this energy. And it's like I'm sitting here in a state of absolute pleasure for me. No one else is involved in this experience, and it's
Yes.
safe. I feel safe because I'm in it just for myself. I feel like I've just got this playful little secret, right? Like
Yeah.
you're all sitting here in this
It's
queue,
a
kind
fun
of
game.
cranky,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here going, "Oh, this feels great."
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes. And I think like there's such a misconception that like that it's sexual, like specifically, or that it's inappropriate to be doing that in it's like
Exactly.
we're not we're not rubbing on the fruit. We're not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
No.
completely internal and it is a personal experience and it is literally adjusting the lens through which I am experiencing whatever I'm doing. I can experience it through frustration. I can experience it through boredom. I can experience it through pleasure. It's like we get to control that when we know how to connect to our bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this is the piece, right? Because I know that if someone had have said these things to me like all those years ago and I just didn't even know that this was a thing, I would have first of all been like, you're crazy. And secondly, there also would have been the part of me though that would be like, but I kind of want that and I don't know how to do it. So
Right?
now
Tell me how.
I'm gonna pretend that what you're talking about is stupid because I don't know how to do it, right? So I feel like maybe we could share like a couple of really, really super simple tips or tools for people that they can do in their everyday life to be able to
Yeah.
connect to that pleasure. So I don't know if you've got one. I've definitely got one that I would love to share. So maybe if we share one each and then people can kind of take a
Okay.
juicy, we'll take a juicy piece away. So I'm
You
gonna
can go
I want to do the which I don't know if I've done with you with the pelvic bowl. So anyone who's watching, and I can see all your comments coming through, which is awesome. Rachel's 3-year-old is giving us lots of hearts, so this is very cool. Getting love hearts from a 3-year-old. So if you're tuning into this and you're in a place where you can really just drop into this space, do. If you're in a place where it's like just crazy busy and there's a lot going on, don't worry, still just listen to what I'm saying and tune in as best you can, and then you'll be able to go back and do this another time. It's literally going to be a 2-minute exercise and you'll be amazed at what happens. So imagine that your pelvic bowl is actually a brandy glass. So you've got a brandy glass that's sitting in the bottom of your pelvic bowl, right? And in that brandy glass, it's just a little bit of brandy. Just a little bit of brandy sitting in the bottom of your brandy glass. I don't know if you've ever watched someone with a brandy glass, but what they do is they just very gently swirl the brandy glass. And as they're swirling it, it's actually bringing the vapors up from the alcohol. Not that I've ever drunk brandy, but this is my understanding of it from when I've inquired to people. So just imagining your pelvic bowl as a brandy glass and you've got a little bit of brandy sitting in the bottom of the pelvic bowl. And then just very gently swirl your pelvic bowl, just very gently swirling like that in a little brandy glass. And it's like you can just feel, see, imagine, know that the brandy is just gently swirling around inside. You might kind of feel a little bit strange, or it might already feel like a little bit of pleasure. So just kind of feel what's the true sensation there as you're just and you can do this in a way that's so gentle that nobody can see it, or you can do it as big as what you want. So just feeling that, and then now seeing, feeling, knowing that there's a vapor that is starting to rise off the brandy in that brandy glass. And that vapor that's starting to rise is your pleasure. And allowing the vapor from that brandy glass now to start to move through your body. So up out of the pelvic bowl and allow it to start to move through your body. Woo. Let me get myself all very pleasured up here. Woo. And so you can do this for 30 seconds, a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can do it for however long you feel. But what you'll notice is that just by this gentle moving of the hips and this gentle visualization, so it's a visualization that's beyond having to be anything that's happening with your body. It's a really beautiful, super simple way to just start to activate that pleasure center within your body and to start to be able to bring it through your whole body. So we're moving it beyond the pelvis. It's not about sex, it's about pleasure. And they're two different, really different pieces that can come together. And it's amazing when they're both together, and they can both be very separate. So it's activating this pleasure center within your body. So if you've been playing with that and practicing that, just keep on doing that. And I'm gonna get Jamy to share something as well. But I just want you to know that like the more you allow yourself to drop in and breathe with that and visualize with that, the more pleasure will start to activate in your body. That's one of my
Mm.
faves. And I actually will share. So I did that when I was going through customs one time. And what I was doing is once I kind of built up that pleasure, so I was bringing it to my heart, because it's a pretty, those people who have stood in those long queues, it's not a very heart-centered place. And when you get to the person at the front, they're usually cranky and tired and whatever. And so I was really just bringing it and bringing it to my heart. And I was just using that energy to make my heart expand. And by the time I got to the person at the front stamping the passports who had been cranky at everybody else, and I arrived and he was happy and smiling and talking, and he even kind of spoke to the friend beside him, and it was nothing, it was pure innocent. It was just coming from this heart space. There was nothing sexual or weird about it. It really was just coming from this place of like, I can share a really heart-centered energy with others. It's not about anything else. So
Yeah.
it's my little one.
Yeah, well, that's perfect lead into what I often do, because it really is for me the practice of anchoring that sensation of pleasure into our bodies and recognizing that it's ours, so it's ours to activate by choice. It's not an external thing. There isn't anything that needs to happen in order for us to tap into pleasure in our bodies. And visualizations like you're sharing, it's like, it's a way to get us there. It's a way to introduce our bodies to what that energy feels like. And I think too, there's something about separating sensuality and like being very, like your senses being very awakened and alive and heightened is different than sexuality.
Yeah.
And that's the play of bringing that energy. So it's like activating the energy of that sensuality, of that pleasure, and moving it through your body, but then interacting with your life from that place, like, I don't know, like eating a juicy pear in that place feels different than just eating the pear, so it's like starting to infuse that energy into the experiences of everyday life, or even notice like picking out fruit at the grocery store feels more alive and more nuanced. And, there's just like this subtle frequency and vibration that you tap into differently than when you're just going about your business. So that's that for me. It's like encouraging people to, it starts to kind of disconnect the shame and the projection and the stuff, the stories that we have around being sensual beings, and the way we kind of want to push that away or not fully own that, and recognize that it's actually a really beautiful experience instead of anything that's shameful. But sometimes our bodies need to experience that. It's like, oh, nothing bad's happening. Like, I'm not imposing on anybody. Nothing bad is happening to me. And letting our nervous system kind of integrate utilizing and being in this sensual energy in all of the different places in life. So yeah, that's, I don't do the pelvic bowl thing, but I will sometimes now because that was quite fun. But it's like, I think that because I work with it so often, and usually it's like we're clearing into pleasure and things like that, that when we do this, it's like we're very aware of what that vibration feels like in the body. So it's like, how quickly can you tap into that and choose that vibration in your body and turn that key on and then play from that place. So yeah, it's not
This
just
is
for the bedroom.
no, like not at all. Like sometimes I think it's more fun out of the bedroom and just for myself instead of it needing to be like with a partner or for a partner. It's literally just, I want to be in a state of pleasure in my life. And like you kind of touched on before, as well, as life starts to respond to you very differently. Like I can witness it in my life now if I'm not feeling connected to my body. I had some stuff happen at the end of last year and I wasn't doing my practices. I wasn't connected to my body. I was in a state of stress. And the world was responding differently to me. And now I'm back in my connection and really back into my pleasure and into my body for myself. And suddenly it's like the world is kind of saying, what do you want? Like, here, there's
Yeah.
this juicy life because you're bringing in a juicy energy. We want to respond to you in that way, and new opportunities are coming, and people treat me differently, and like even just going into the cafe, people are different, everyone's smiling. It's like so beyond. Like I think we both are saying it a few times because I feel like it's really important that pleasure and sex, or sensuality and sex, are two different things. They're amazing when they're together. However, you can also have so much of this pleasure and sensuality in your body just for you. Like I've had some women kind of be like, yeah, but like, I don't have a partner to do that with. Good.
Yeah.
Like great, actually. Like, can
Yeah.
I tell you how many times like I kick my partner out into the other bedroom? Like we have two bedrooms here, and I literally like ask him quite often. I'm like, okay, bye. You're sleeping in the other room tonight, so that I can just have some space for me and myself and my own body. And it's not even
Yeah.
about that having to be self pleasure or sex again. It's just about like, can I just come into my body and feel my body again? Like,
Mm.
what I have. It's as simple as that. Like I have a freaking body, man.
Amazing, right? Yeah. Something you touched on too is the way that this literally creates a magnetism. We talk about drawing in and calling experiences and opportunities into our life. And I mean, from firsthand experience, this is what it looks like is when I'm in this energy of pleasure, I'm calling in more pleasure. It's like the frequencies match. And so that's what's coming into my field more and more. That's, it's like turning the
Mm.
magnetism on high.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mhm.
The radiance I feel that comes as well. Like you can see it. You can feel it when a woman is in her pleasure. It's obvious. She radiates. She's so different.
And it's a breath of fresh air. I think that's probably part of why it garners a different response is
Yeah.
because we aren't just sleepy going through the motions. It's like there's this aliveness and this consciousness in the presence. It's like in the eyes and in the body and in the movements that looks different than somebody who is kind of in the mind, shut down, just going through the motions. There's a real human right there. And yeah, it gives people something to respond to, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like we need more of that in the world right now, more
Yeah.
than ever. More than ever. It's like, this thing like maybe you could be in lockdown right now, which I know so many people are in lockdown right now. And it's like, yes, so there are things that are being taken away from you, but your body and your pleasure is still there for you to be able to tune in and play to. And it's like what you're experiencing right now could be uncomfortable, or it could be still probably uncomfortable, but also pleasuresome and uncomfortable. Maybe you want to go outside and do something, but can you start
Yeah.
to bring this pleasure and start to use this time to connect more into your
Yeah.
own body?
Well, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, literally, can we find the pleasure in the discomfort? Can we find the pleasure
Mm,
in the pain? Can we, it's like our mind is like, yeah, but if I'm this, then I can't have that. And it's like, can we just expand to hold both? When I got this tattoo in Bali, actually, he was shading and shading and shading. And I remember like asking myself, what is my story about pain? Like, why
mm,
am I contracting and like wincing at the pain? And it was like, can I breathe? Can I open into that? Can
mm,
I um, bring pleasure into this moment and like let go of any story around what this is supposed to look like? And it was amazing. It's like, I it's just so powerful to recognize how we can literally change an experience by reframing it, by bringing in a new frequency and a new vibration into our bodies.
mm.
Different than
Yeah.
mindset, not like think it away. It's a
Mm,
somatic, um, like neural, like nervous system experience and not a thought, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, I love that you brought that. Similar experience with the big tattoo on my back, actually. I just spent the whole time breathing into it. What happens if I
Yeah.
breathe in? And as soon as I thought it hurt, what if I just breathe into that? And I was in a state of pleasure whilst getting big
Yeah.
ass tattoo on my back, I was kind of like, I floated out at the end just in this real like, whoo, because I'd spent, can't remember how many hours I was there for, like 4 hours or something. And I'd spent 4 hours breathing in and being with my body. And I really was just in such a state of openness. And I feel like, because it's not very often actually that we would spend 4 or 5 hours breathing into sensation in the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big one, like
And it's
breath, breath, breath.
yeah,
Mm.
and this just makes me think of like what we can do specifically in pregnancy too. It's like how we can bring this frequency of awareness and pleasure into the sensations of
Mm.
childbirth. And yeah, I know that in our world we talk about ecstatic birthing and
Yeah.
all of that. That's not like a common uh, topic, but the ability to bring that breath and that ease and that pleasure into childbirthing,
Mm.
it is an important part of even with the Blue Diamond Souls and the way they want to come through into that ecstatic current and into that pleasure. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. It's such a big piece of them. It's actually like a really big piece for our own soul, and also for children, for their soul, is to be able to bring ecstasy into the body, which people just think, what? Like, why would I bring ecstasy into my body when I'm birthing? But if we can bring ecstasy into the body, which simply is pleasure, it's simply all of the cells vibrating together. So the kind of the key, the way in, is to find a sense of pleasure, and is to find a sense of using your breath to move through what's in your body and to open your body, and you'll find then all the cells just start to vibrate together in this state of ecstasy. And that is like these high vibrational children, that's what they want. They want to be able to come through into that ecstatic state. And yeah, it's not something actually that's talked about often, and it is something we talk about in our world, but I feel like it's great for people to be able to hear that that's even a thing. Like,
hmm
it's possible, it is humanly possible to have an ecstatic birth and to have your whole body be in ecstasy, or even an orgasmic birth, to have, like, to really be in a state of orgasm as you're giving birth. It is a thing, it is possible. And that's not
yeah,
to say anyone who isn't doing that, like, is like, you didn't get a high vibrational child because you didn't do it ecstatically. It's definitely not that, like, at all. I know a lot of high vibrational children who are here who did not come in that way, so that's definitely not what I mean. But it's like, it is an option, it is something that's very much available, and I'm witnessing it, that it's women who have done the work around the womb that have
yeah,
really stepped into that space, that are able to have that type of birth. Like, it's really,
yeah,
it opens up for them. It's amazing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it really is that the work really is a portal to uh, understanding the depths and the power that we do hold in these physical bodies, and there are, I'm sure, a lot of ways to find that connection. But this, like the womb work in particular, is what worked best for me, what got me to that place on such a tangible level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, same. It's like, this piece around, like, birthing and pregnancy, like, that's also the reason why, like, with this next program coming through, is we're opening it up to birth workers. Actually, a lot of womb spiral practitioners go on to become birth workers, because they see the potency of using this work in birth. But actually,
Yeah.
for people who are birth workers, or for someone who is looking to conceive and have a child, being able to have this depth of understanding of the womb gates, and being able to have this transmission and work with them at that time of birth, is profound. And so for the woman who's birthing to have an understanding of that is amazing. But also just for the birth worker who is there with her, holding that
Yeah.
space to vibrate, I'm getting covered in goosebumps, to vibrate each gate open as that soul is coming through into the body, and as the body is coming out. That is next level profound. And I feel like that is the option. I feel like that's where birth work has the option and the possibility to start to go. And that's what I want to
Yeah.
support, is like, how do we bring that type of birthing into the world, please?
Mhm. Amen. Amen. I mean, I've had my own experience, birth 2 kiddos, and I wish that I had the awareness that I do now in those births. Obviously, I know that's not what was meant for me. But like, I wish that I knew that I could trust my body then. There was so much
Mm,
conditioning and fear around the experience that I just wanted to feel safe because I didn't know how to trust my own body yet. And I had no connection to her. So it was like, how could I trust, like, there was no intelligence that I was aware of, and where I am now, it's like, it's almost sad to me that there are so many women that don't know the depth and the deep wisdom that their bodies hold and that their babies hold. And what a game changer it would be if we did. Actually, the call I was on right before this, we were talking about how vastly the world would change if women learned to love and trust their bodies in all the
mhm.
ways, and they weren't judging it and worrying about it and believing all the stories about it. And if women just loved their bodies and trusted and
Yeah.
connected to their bodies, like,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah. A completely different world. That's the
Yeah.
thing, is because also for us to realize that that like, I know we're talking so much about women, but it's like the women who are birthing, like that is a reality, is that actually then shifts the next generation, is that makes change, really, really positive shift and change for the next generation, is for women to be able to hold this in their own body, because it makes it normal for the next generation coming through, because then they see it and go, oh, so I actually get to have pleasure and I get to be connected to my body. And I'm sure you've probably seen a shift in your own girls as well, of like, you going on this path opens up something different. And I've seen it with so many women coming through this work who then say, like, my relationship with my children has changed and my children have changed.
Yes,
See it
vastly.
a lot. Mm,
Yeah. You can't, I mean, definitely that we talked about this last week in your group, but my kids literally expressed that they could feel me differently after the womb spiral.
yeah.
And I mean, it really helped me to dissolve walls that I had that I didn't even know were there. And so in that, I could be more present and they could feel, because the love was always there,
Yeah.
but it wasn't felt because I was still kind of holding. I had a barrier, and um yeah, it's so beautiful to watch my kids learn to trust the wisdom of their own bodies as well. And I think something else about that actually that's coming up with my kids now too is that, like, as we trust our own bodies and come into the wisdom of ourselves, it also allows us to trust other women,
Mm,
and it changes the dynamics and the
mm.
relationships and sisterhood and with other women, um, because we understand kind of the nuance and what's happening when there is trigger, when there's conflict, but also we aren't feeling like we need to protect ourselves anymore, so we can feel each other more fully.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that's a beautiful key point, and I mean, obviously, I'm noticing that as well. Like, we're stepping into this next program, and you and I are co-facilitating it, and we have 3 mentors, and there's 8 guest teachers coming in, of which most are women. If you had took me back a few years ago when I was not connected to my body, I would not have been able to do that because I would have felt threatened. Whereas now,
Mm,
like, now I'm connected into my own body, I can feel other women and I can feel where they're at in their own experience, in their own journey, from a place of non-judgment. So even when things happen that normally I would be like, why are you doing that or saying that? Instead, I'm like, oh, I see what you're in right now. Amazing. And we can lovingly support each other through these pieces that used to be, for me, like, I would be out. That would be a runaway moment of like, I don't know how to deal with this. So I'm going to go. Um,
yeah,
and it, like, everything changes.
yeah,
Paradigms change.
completely. It really does. It's like, for me anyway, it's like it's allowed me to hold love and compassion for someone, um, in instances that previously would have triggered defensiveness. And it's like, I don't need the
Mm,
defensiveness anymore. It's
yeah.
like the, I don't know if I said this last time, but like this awareness that when we really drop into love and into that feminine, people talk about feeling vulnerable, and um, it's this awareness that like you can't stab the ocean, you know? Like
Mm,
there there is nothing for it to it just goes right through because it is so receptive, it is so open, you know? So it's like when we can really hold that state, we don't need defenses because there
mm.
it just isn't possible to yeah, to be attacked or injured by the intent or the action of others.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's fascinating what opens up. Like I'm, witnessing it in myself over the last kind of few months or last 6 months or so is like in the past, if somebody didn't like something about me, I would have hoped that they never ever like I never heard about it because I wouldn't want to know. And what I'm noticing now is this place of like, please, like honesty. Like I love it. Like I breathe it in. If somebody is like, oh, this thing that you did or said offended me, and I'm like, oh, thank you. Like I literally feel
yeah,
my body open into it and go, oh,
yeah,
thank you so much. And there's this depth of trust that comes with that person who's able to just say something that in the past I would have freaked out about and been like, oh my God, they don't like me. And now I'm like, oh, thank you so much for your honesty. Like everything changes as we connect more in. And in fact, that shifts every aspect of our life. I wanted to ask you as well about, because I feel like one of the areas that this impacts for people who are, I think back to my life in corporate. And I'm like, oh
mm,
God, if only I could have had this experience. But I
right,
wonder what you witness not only in yourself but also in the women that you take through Womb Spiral on how it impacts them on a career, business, corporate, like whatever reality they're in. What are you
yeah,
witnessing?
yeah. I mean, this is my favorite, but um, I mean, it comes back to the life, right? I think that so often we go into autopilot and we just don't know it. We're just doing like robots. And when we actually bring our awareness, when we bring our consciousness, when we bring intention to our life, to our job, to corporate, to the grocery store, to whatever it is, there's intention, there's clarity, there's, you know, and it's interesting because people are like, oh, what if I hate my job? And it's like, what if you do? Like, what would be wrong with that? You know, it's like, what if life does take you on a different path because you were on that path, you know, like unintentionally, you didn't know you weren't supposed to be on that path. But also, what if you actually could fully enjoy what you're doing because now you're just present and intentional, you know? I think though that in work, there's a lot of clear communication that changes, like where women often feel maybe passive or
Mm,
unequipped to speak their desires or to establish boundaries. Um, they find the space to be able to say, I would really like this to change, or no, I actually can't do that for you right now. And we did talk about, you know, yeses and nos, but there's something about clear and honest boundaries that actually creates more safety and more intimacy in
mm,
relationships. So while the mind is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired or they're going to hate me, allowing the nervous system to actually experience a clear no or a clear boundary or a clear expression of needs or wants or whatever it is actually creates more intimacy and more safety in the space
mm.
for both sides of the equation. So yeah, there's that too. I think it offers like this new level of maturity and stability that instead of everybody being in avoidance, it's like let's actually just come to the table fully and be really honest about what's here and what we're creating.
God, I'm like, could you imagine the difference in the world, like in normal kind of working situation, which I haven't been in for a number of years, but can you like I think back to being in corporate, like can you imagine what that would have been like to actually be in a
Yeah.
safe space, to be able to
Yeah.
come into the boardroom together and just say like, hey, this isn't feeling okay for me and that's not feeling okay for you. And oh wow, I've really hurt you with that. I'm so sorry. And this ability to be open and vulnerable, what that would change.
Exactly. Well, and I think there's this thing like a lot of women who have been passive feel like it would be really mean or bitchy to say no. Like, oh, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to hurt their feelings. And it's like this awareness that it doesn't actually have to be that though. Like we can actually kindly and lovingly say, "She's here. Are you there?" Yes. I was gonna say we're like close to an hour, so maybe it's just time. But
No, that is Bali Wi-Fi lately just decides like, I'm just going to cut you off for a minute.
Yeah, yeah, it
I don't even know,
happens a lot.
but yes, we are close to an hour, so maybe it's time to start kind of wrapping.
It's like,
Maybe
come on, ladies.
yeah, that's Bali being like, "Come on, people can't listen to you all day." I'm like, "But we could talk for
Yeah,
days on this." Um,
we could, yes.
I
And we will
know.
be talking for the next 6 months. Yeah, that's really
We
exciting.
will
So
be talking for the next 6 months. I'm like, anyone who's watching this, who like there's something in your being, something in your body that is like, I want to know more about that. I want to journey more of that. I want to understand more. Jamie and I are literally just about to start co-facilitating for 6 months. It's a profoundly amazing program. The Temple of Armella. There's Jamie and I co-facilitating 3 really amazing mentors and like at least 8. I can't remember because the number keeps changing because I'm talking to a number of people, but there's definitely like 8 confirmed guest teachers as well. There's different levels that you can come into. And this is what's exciting me about this program this time. It's like, if you're just wanting to come in and go, I want connection to me. I just want to feel more connected to my own body, to my own self, not worried about anybody else. Like I'm not a practitioner or facilitator or anything along those lines. I just want connection for me, then there's a level for you called Womb Weaver. If you are like, I want to dive even deeper than that, and I want to understand the womb gates, and I want to have, like, there are many other teachings that we're bringing in around really deepening into your own feminine and your own inner relationship as well. Maybe you are a birth worker, or you work holding space for other people, or maybe you just are like, I just want to, I'm ready to just dive deep and to really make transformation. Then you would come in at the womb alchemist level. If you are like, I want to become a womb spiral practitioner, or even if you don't have to become a womb spiral practitioner, maybe it's I'm wanting to become a practitioner in womb work. I really want to take this work to the world with clients. Then you would come in at the top level at the womb priestess, where we go incredibly deep it's very intensive 6 months. You also get one-on-one time with each Jamie and myself, and it's super intensive for 6 months. Very profound program. I was talking to someone about it last night and telling her all the different pieces, and then telling her like the surprise business module that we're putting in, and she was a full yes, and she was like, I kind of feel like it's too cheap or something. So I was like, she's like, that is so much content in that period of time. I'm like, yeah, because the intention of that top level is I want women to come out and be profound practitioners. So it's like, oh, massive value and massive overgiving in that level, because we want to create a movement of very powerful womb spiral practitioners out in this world who are in deep integrity and doing amazing work.
Yes.
So excited.
Yes. Amen. I'm so excited, and I'm so grateful to be, participating in this. I can feel, just me and the clients that I take through. It's like, imagine if this work were in more hands, we're traveling ripples further. It would just it creates massive change, and like on a cellular level in your life, and it just excites me to know that there will be more people experiencing and embodying this work in the world. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Talk about pleasure.
I know there will definitely be plenty of that in the 6 months. And I'm just so excited to facilitate this beside you, and to really be birthing this temple and stepping into this space of being able to have women do this work together and change that paradigm and really do it side by side. So I'm very excited to journey with you, and to all the women who are coming in. They're definitely starting to be drawn in and magnetized in right now. I've been talking to quite a few this week, and there's some amazing women coming in to be in this space. So there's a really beautiful sisterhood being formed of women who want to support other women as well. So
Beautiful.
well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for listening. I can see that there's been some comments and things coming through. The way this is set up, it's very difficult to read the comments at the same time as talking, but we will definitely both go through and have a look at those and reply to any comments that need a reply. If you're feeling the call to this, I'm going to put the link in the comments, but also please feel free to reach out and private message. Like, super welcome to private message either of us, to voice messages, to private messages, to get on a call, whatever feels right. Really, what all I'm interested in is to support you to feel, is this a fit for you? And if it's not a fit, that's totally amazing. And if it is a fit, fantastic. Come in and join us for this 6 months. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone. Have a beautiful, amazing day or evening wherever you are in this world. Signing off.